Digital Foundry has gone independent by buying their brand and video archive from IGN. After years of shared ownership, which passed from parent company to parent company, and David has a note here, Eurogamer's parent company, Gamers Network, first bought 50% of Digital Foundry, but was then bought by ReedPop, and then IGN's parent company, Ziff Davis, bought Gamers Network from them. Ziff Davis has had back-to-back rounds of layoffs and offered the buyback to Leadbetter. Richard Leadbetter has bought back a majority share of Digital Foundry, the company he founded around 20 years ago, by adding 25% to the 50% ownership he already had. The final 25% will be held by investor Rupert Lohman, co-founder of Eurogamer. Although we don't know the exact cost of the buyback, Leadbetter said, "I think this is pretty much easily the biggest thing I've ever bought, more than my house." Leadbetter also insists that Digital Foundry won't see major changes or move to a primarily subscription-based model, and hopes that they can more easily pursue some of the passion projects that their parent companies have shied away from, like a retro games-focused podcast. That would be pretty cool. We're huge fans of the painstaking work that Digital Foundry does, so we're excited to see where they take the company, and we wish them nothing but success after success. So congrats, Richard, Alex, John, Oliver, and everyone on the team. Our discussion question here is, what freedoms has being an independent media source afforded LMG? Ooh, I mean, many. I think that without being privately held, not just privately held, but majority privately held, we would be a shadow of the company that we are today. We would not be able to do any of the kind of fun, outlandish projects that we do, buying fire trucks, moving into the old house for our April
Fools. Fire truck would have never flown.
There's absolutely no way.
That would never happen.
There's absolutely no way.
Especially the last April Fool's one where you got that house. There's no way.
There's absolutely no way. Bean counters won't allow that kind of thing. And as much as I love to kind of rib Yvonne on camera about her, her bean counter persona, she's a pretty fun-loving bean counter, and it really doesn't take that much convincing, for her to kind of let me do whatever it is that I think is going to ultimately resonate with you, who I see as our guiding star, right? And help us kind of build that relationship in the longer term. There's all kinds of decisions with respect to like sponsored content or advertiser relationships that we've walked away from that I don't think a more bean-oriented ownership group would have allowed, or they certainly would have pushed us to try to make things work when we just look at it and we just go, yeah, this just doesn't really make sense. Like there's times that we could have done it, but it would have sucked and it would have felt forced and you guys wouldn't have liked it and it wouldn't have been good for the long term. But I just feel like more numbers oriented people have a tendency to be not forward thinking, but almost more retrospective. Like, they'll look back and go, well, that didn't, blow us up back then, so it should be fine. And looking backward is such a, well, for me, it's such a flawed perspective when you're trying to figure out the path forward, because just because the direction that you're marching in right now has been good up until this time doesn't mean that it is going to be good in the future, or even that it was ever good. It might just mean you got away with it, and I am grateful every day that we never raised money. Every day that we do anything, I'm like, man, I am so glad that I'm not accountable to some bean counter owner that can tell me how to do my job, because at the end of the day, my job is to be me. And hopefully, enough of you out there relate to that this whole thing doesn't collapse, right? Like it's pretty scary and also humbling to think about that we are one of the longest standing like influencer organizations slash people. Like I hail from a completely different era of online influencers before the word even existed. And yeah, you know, I'm not on
many actually
multiple eras. The rise and fall of many KOLs, key online influencers. That was the first term that had influencer in it that I remember. From before that was just like a thing. Have come and gone in the time that I've been around, and I am, you know, knock on wood here, you know, haven't reached the same heights as some of those people. You know what they say about the candle that burns twice as bright might burn half as long. So mine's been a slow burn in my weird little tech niche here, but I am acutely aware of the fact that what we do is an alchemical combination of luck and skill and the right people and grit and all of those things that have somehow managed to carry on for, I mean, 17, I think coming on 18 years now since my first upload, which is literally my YouTube career is almost legally an adult now. It's just kind of mind-blowing, you know?
It is kind of wild. It's been interesting being in creator conversations, like mostly at Open Sauce, where you hear people talk about us, if you know what I mean. Like there's very few people still around that know that we kind of like pioneered ads, which in a pretty large way, directly or indirectly, enabled a lot of creators to do this as a job. There's,
to be clear, I want a point of clarification. We weren't the first to do the like podcast style, like, you know, ad reads inside our videos, but we were one of the first to do it, with like the cutaway to essentially very similar to Google's own AdSense spots. We were one of the first to do sponsorship reads like that with the, you know, the link above the fold. And we used to use YouTube's annotations, so you could like click on it and interact with it and go to the sponsor's website and stuff like that. And what we definitely were, for better or for worse, was we were one of the first to explain it to our audience and explain how the economics of AdSense were not going to allow the scale that we could see for this medium to grow, and that there would need to be more to make it sustainable. And Google never, to this day, still hasn't figured out how to compete with the CPMs of your own internal sales team selling those placements somehow. And I remember getting into a somewhat, I wouldn't say heated, but maybe testy conversation with someone very high up at Google who works on the ad product, who basically was of the mind that our idiot advertisers are overpaying for those spots. And I said, no, your idiot product is not selling optimally enough, because if you guys were getting the same CPMs that I was, I wouldn't even need to do it. We agreed to disagree. We agreed to disagree.
What a terrible take. Whoa. I would not want a person with that opinion to lead a team that I was on.
Well, it depends. No, because I don't want to be down on the guy. Because honestly, the reason I was talking to him in the first place was because he's smart as a f***ing whip. Like one of the smartest people that I have ever had the pleasure of speaking with. There's a reason that he's in the position he's in. However, I think people can end up in their bubble a little bit, and he's in a very data-driven bubble. From his perspective, when it comes down to the raw data, he's right. They are overpaying because you should only pay a market rate. But from my perspective, where what I bring to the conversation is the human element, where people, ad buyers do not buy necessarily only click-through and conversion. They care about those things, especially a certain kind of buyer cares about those things. But if that was all that mattered, nobody would ever buy a Super Bowl ad. That would have no value, right? Some ad buyers, it's more about the emotion. It's about building the connection between those brands. Why do you think AMD spends as much money as they spend? And don't kid yourself, they spend money on AMD Ultimate Tech Upgrade. It's an emotional connection that they want. How many Ryzen CPUs do you think every AMD Ultimate Tech Upgrade sells? A handful, maybe? It's not about that. It's about AMD getting to be part of bringing positivity and being at the center of people's tech lives. That's what it's about. That's what they want. And they can't replicate that with just like a data-driven ad transaction product. You have to have both.
Yeah, I hope he has some more conversations with you in the future. Yeah.
Sorry, what?
I hope he has more conversations with you on that topic in the future.
Well, because one of the things that I was kind of pitching was I would love to have more tools for us selling against their integration tools.
Yeah.
Like why? Like because which was what I was ultimately trying to get at, was we know our product better than you ever could. And I don't have to prove that because I already did. Because I can sell it for more than you can. So either get good or let me be good. But what we're doing right now is, I think, it creates a really fragmented product for the user. I think that for a user who pays for YouTube Premium, the fact that so much baked-in sponsorness is in their content is a really discombobulating experience. And I would love to streamline the product so that if Google can figure out how to make their ad service products actually work, and if they can give us the tools where we can feed our own content into them, that could be a net benefit to both sides. And a better experience for the users.
If you could properly sell takeovers as well, I think ads would like that. Sorry, brands would like that. Like if you could have it so that the Google ads and the baked-in ads on a video were from the same company.
Yeah. Hathos says, trust is important to me. The majority of the publications and channels, I don't trust their product recommendations without my own research, but with LTT's integrity and my investment as a viewer, product recommendations have weight. And that's something that we strive for. And we don't always get it right. I want to make that abundantly clear. But what we do is we take your feedback. He said doo-doo. Sorry. What we do is we take your feedback and we bring that back to our business team, and we make sure that they are constantly revising from a category standpoint, from a business type standpoint, and even down to individual brand standpoint, who we're willing to work with.